whoever the entertainer is, people come a long way, pay a lot of money to see somebody they like, and when they come see me, that's great.
Willie Nelson has worked with just about everyone in the music world, but there were a few stars he couldn't stand. After decades of keeping it to himself, he finally revealed the country singers he hated most, and some of the names might shock you. These weren't petty feuds or simple disagreements. His reasons go much deeper. It's the side of Willie Nelson fans rarely see, but now it's time to hear the truth. Join us as we find out the 5 music artists Willie Nelson couldn't forgive before the fame. Willie Nelson, the man known for lighting up joints and playing alongside rock legends. In a music world that often confuses loudness for truth and perfection for heart, Willie Nelson proves that there are deeper things more important than accolades, chart numbers, or even being famous. Born on April 29, 1933, in the small town of Abbott, Texas, he was the second child to Ira Doyle Nelson and Merle Marie Greenhaw. They had moved from Arkansas to Texas in 1929, hoping to find better jobs. Willie's birth was mistakenly recorded as April 30 by the attending doctor, which caused confusion later. His cousin Mildred gave him the name Willie and chose Hugh as his middle name, honoring her younger brother, who had passed away at the time. Not long after he was born, his mother left the family. A short time later, his father remarried and moved away as well. Willie and his sister Bobby were left to live with their grandparents, who had once taught singing back in Arkansas. They raised the 2 children with care, introducing them to music early in life. When Willie turned 6, his grandfather gave him a guitar and patiently taught him a few simple chords. Soon after, Willie and Bobby began singing gospel songs at the local church, enjoying those moments together. By the time he was 7, Willie had already written his first song. 2 years later, he joined a local band called Bohemian Polka and played the guitar with them. Summers in Abbott were hard for many families. Like many others in town, Willie's family picked cotton during those hot months. However, he did not enjoy working in the fields and found it difficult. So, at just 13, he began singing for money in dance halls, taverns, and honky-tonks. He kept doing this through high school, slowly becoming more confident and skilled on stage. Music shaped him deeply. He often listened to artists like Jimmie Rodgers, Hank Williams, Bob Wills, and Lefty Frizzell. He also admired Ray Price, Ernest Tubb, Hank Snow, and Django Reinhardt. Later, his musical taste widened, and he enjoyed the voices of Frank Sinatra and Louis Armstrong. These influences stayed with him and helped shape his own unique sound. At Abbott High School, Willie stayed active. He played halfback on the football team, took the guard position in basketball, and also played shortstop in baseball. Outside sports, he raised pigs through a school program called Future Farmers of America. He was always busy. Even during high school, he performed with a band called the Texans, which had been started by his sister Bobby's husband, Bud Fletcher. The band performed in local honky-tonks and also had a radio segment on KHBR in nearby Hillsboro. Willie also worked a few small jobs. He had a short job answering phones in Abbott, then worked as a tree trimmer for the electric company. Later, he found work in a pawn shop. After finishing school in 1950, he joined the United States Air Force. But he only served for 8 months before being discharged because of back problems that made it too hard for him to continue. When he came back home, he married Martha Matthews in 1952. 2 years later, he started studying agriculture at Baylor University until 1956. But Willie found college life unfulfilling and decided to follow his passion for music instead. He dropped out and took on several jobs to make ends meet. He worked as a bouncer at a nightclub, sold car parts, made saddles, and even trimmed trees. Eventually, he played with Johnny Bush's band, trying to stay involved in the music scene. Willie and his family then moved to Pleasanton, Texas. There, he went to the local radio station and auditioned for a job as a DJ. Even though he had no real experience, the station's owner gave him the job. Willie gladly accepted it. Using the station's equipment, he recorded his first 2 songs in 1955, "The Storm Has Just Begun" and "When I've Sung My Last Hillbilly Song." He used old tape reels for these recordings and sent them to a small label, SRG Records. Unfortunately, the label turned him down. Still determined, he continued working in radio. He took jobs at KDNT in Denton, KCUL, and KCNC in Fort Worth. He also had a spot on a show called The Western Express and spent time teaching Sunday school. In the evenings, he performed at local nightclubs, trying to keep his music alive in any way possible. Later, he decided to try his luck in San Diego. He hoped to find a job and a fresh start there, but things didn't work out as he had planned. Unable to find work, he began hitchhiking north toward Portland, Oregon, where his mother was living. On the way, nobody stopped to pick him up. He ended up sleeping in a ditch, cold and alone, unsure of what to do next. Eventually, he jumped onto a freight train heading toward Eugene. A truck driver later found him and kindly gave him a ride to the bus station. That driver even loaned him $10 so he could buy a ticket to get to Portland. His journey was rough, but Willie kept moving forward. With every setback, he learned more. With every song, he became stronger. The early years of his life were full of hard work, family struggles, and a growing love for music that never left him. But that was only the beginning. The struggle for success. In the mid-1950s, Nelson got his start in radio and live club performances around Vancouver, Washington. His first record, released in 1956, failed to attract attention, but he stayed in the scene, shuffling between cities and struggling to find success. He sang in clubs, worked briefly in Colorado, and eventually returned to Texas, where he temporarily left music. During this time, he made a living selling Bibles, vacuum cleaners, and encyclopedias door to door. After his son Billy was born, Nelson moved with his family to Houston, Texas. That was where his songwriting began to gain traction. He sold some of his early compositions for modest sums, one of which, Family Bible, became a hit for another artist. Still determined, Nelson moved to Nashville in 1960. His early efforts were overlooked, but persistence paid off when he joined Pamper Music thanks to songwriter Hank Cochran. This connection proved fruitful. Songs like Hello Walls and Crazy were recorded by popular artists and became massive hits. With more of his songs being picked up, Nelson's reputation as a songwriter soared. He soon joined Ray Price's band as a bass player and toured while his compositions gained attention across the country music scene. By 1961, Nelson had signed with Liberty Records. His early singles as a performer finally made it to the charts, and his debut album was released the following year. His marriage to Shirley Colley followed, and they relocated to California, where he worked for Pamper Records. Though the job offered stability, it limited his musical output, prompting Nelson to return to Tennessee and purchase a ranch. In 1964, he signed with Monument Records, though the relationship produced only one single. Later that year, RCA Victor offered him a contract, and he began recording regularly, joining the Grand Ole Opry and forming a touring band. Despite regular single releases during the late 1960s, he didn't find major success as a solo artist. Then tragedy struck in 1970 when a fire destroyed his home in Tennessee. Seeing this as a sign, he moved to Texas with his new wife, Connie Koepke, and recorded his final single with RCA. Frustrated by poor album sales and a lack of support from the label, Nelson chose to step away from music. Settling in Austin, Texas, Nelson found himself in the middle of a vibrant countercultural music scene that embraced his unique blend of country, folk, and jazz.
There's only so many notes and so many chords and so many ways to use them. And I like rock and roll, I like country, I like classical music, I like all kind of music, so I call it all rock and roll.
The shift in environment revitalized his passion. He performed at the Dripping Springs Reunion Festival, which inspired him to create his own annual event, the 4th of July Picnic. Nelson soon returned to recording, securing a release from his RCA contract through his new manager, Neil Reshen. Atlantic Records welcomed him as its first country artist, and he began recording again with a new backing band, The Family. In 1973, Nelson released Shotgun Willie, an album that signaled a new direction. Although it wasn't commercially successful, it was highly praised. The next album, Phases and Stages, explored the dissolution of a marriage and included a major hit. Nelson also helped launch Austin City Limits, appearing in the show's pilot episode. After moving to Columbia Records, he gained full creative freedom. This decision resulted in the outstanding 1975 album Red-Headed Stranger, which featured his first #1 single as a performer. Nelson and fellow musician Waylon Jennings soon became central figures in the outlaw country movement. In 1976, the album Wanted. The Outlaws made history as the first platinum-certified country music album. That year, he also released 2 more albums, including his first gospel record. Under Rothbaum's management, Nelson released more platinum albums, including Waylon and Willie and Stardust. Although Stardust was seen as a risky departure from traditional country, it became another career-defining success. The 1980s were marked by continued hits. Nelson recorded songs for movie soundtracks, performed chart-topping duets with Julio Iglesias and Merle Haggard, and formed the country supergroup The Highwaymen with Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson. He also participated in charity events such as We Are the World and performed at the White House. By the 1990s, Nelson, still a prominent figure in music, collaborated with artists across genres. He kept touring and releasing albums, including the well-received Teatro in 1998. His popularity extended into the 2000s with further collaborations, notably a chart-topping duet with Toby Keith. He also appeared on albums by Ringo Starr and reggae legends Toots and the Maytals. By the late 2000s, Nelson was working with jazz musicians like Wynton Marsalis and recording tribute albums. His blend of styles and endless curiosity led to successful jazz and pop country releases. In 2010, he issued Country Music, a return to his roots that earned critical praise and Grammy recognition. In 2012, Nelson signed a deal with Legacy Recordings. This included new albums and unreleased material, giving him control over his archives. He resumed work with producer Buddy Cannon, and together they crafted new songs, often composed over text message. The resulting album, Heroes, featured collaborations with family members and longtime friends, keeping Nelson's legacy alive while continuing to push his music forward. But just as he spent time building his career, his life was not without troubles. Legal controversies. Nelson found himself in legal trouble many times over the years, mostly because of weed. The first time happened in 1974 when he was arrested in Dallas, Texas. That was just the beginning of a long line of similar problems. In 1977, after finishing a tour with Hank Cochran, they took a trip to the Bahamas. They arrived late at the airport and had no time to bring their luggage. Their bags were sent separately and reached them later. When they went to claim their bags in the Bahamas, customs officials checked them thoroughly. Inside one pair of jeans, officers found the weed. Nelson was arrested right there and taken to jail. Cochran stepped in quickly to help him. While arranging the bail, he even brought Nelson a 6-pack of beer to drink in the cell. After spending a few hours behind bars, Nelson was finally released. He celebrated by jumping, but he was too drunk and ended up falling hard. He had to be taken to the emergency room. When he appeared in court soon after, the judge decided to drop the charges but warned him never to come back to the country again. In 1990, a much bigger problem came crashing into his life. The Internal Revenue Service said Nelson owed a massive $32 million in unpaid taxes. The situation had grown worse because of risky financial moves Nelson made during the early 1980s. Back in 1978, Nelson had fired his longtime manager Neil Reshan. After that, he was introduced to the accounting firm Price Waterhouse by a Dallas lawyer named Terry Bray. They told him to invest in tax shelters to fix the problems Reshan had caused with the IRS. Nelson followed the advice, but those shelters turned out to be failures. The IRS didn't accept the deductions Nelson claimed for the years 1980, 1981, and 1982. During those years, his income had increased greatly, which only made things worse. As time passed, the debt kept growing because of interest and penalties, and by the end of the decade, it reached a critical level. Nelson's lawyer, Jay Goldberg, managed to get the amount reduced to $16 million. Later, another lawyer negotiated again and brought the number down to $6 million. But Nelson didn't fully follow the terms of the deal. To help cover the cost, he released a double album called The IRS Tapes, Who'll Buy My Memories, and every bit of profit from it went to the IRS. Many of his belongings were taken and sold at auction. Friends of Nelson bought most of them and gave them back to him, either as gifts or by renting them back for very little money. Nelson also decided to sue Price Waterhouse. He said they had mishandled his money and put it in tax shelters that were not legal. That lawsuit was settled privately, and by 1993, Nelson had finally paid off his debts completely. But just when things had started to settle down. The following year, in 1994, he was pulled over near Waco, Texas, and once again, weed was found in his car. This incident came at an especially bad time, as it kept him from attending the Grammy Awards that year. Years later, in 2006, he got into trouble again while traveling to the funeral of Ann W. Richards. Along with his sister Bobby and his manager, Nelson was stopped in St. Martin Parish, Louisiana. Police found both weed and hallucinogenic mushrooms in their vehicle. All of them were arrested and charged. Nelson received a sentence of 6 months of probation. Even at that, trouble didn't stop there. On November 26, 2010, while traveling on his tour bus from Los Angeles back to Texas, he was stopped in Sierra Blanca, Texas. Authorities searched the bus and discovered 6 ounces of weed. He was arrested once more but was let go after paying a $2,500 bail. Prosecutor Kit Bramblett, seeing that the amount wasn't large, didn't push for jail time. Rather, he recommended a $100 fine and jokingly said Nelson should sing a song in court. But the judge didn't take the joke lightly. Nelson's lawyer, Joe Turner, worked out a deal with the prosecutor. Nelson would pay a $500 fine, and that would prevent a 2-year jail sentence. There was a 30-day period where if Nelson stayed out of trouble, the case would be closed. But things didn't go according to plan. The judge later refused to accept the deal. She argued that Nelson was being treated better because of who he was. Normally, that kind of offense would get a 1-year jail sentence. Bramblett said the case would stay open until the judge either changed her decision or the case was officially dismissed. Through the years, Nelson kept facing problems with the law, mostly related to weed. Even though he tried to keep going with his career and personal life, these incidents followed him again and again. His financial troubles, fueled by bad advice and poor investments, nearly ruined him. However, through resilience, special albums, and help from friends, he managed to recover. Despite everything, he kept moving forward, even if the road was often long, rough, and filled with setbacks. Meanwhile, even his personal life was not spared. Life as a family man.
The defense was, this is our normal. It was just our normal. It bothered him more than it bothered them.
Willie Nelson's life has been filled with music, but also with complex and emotional family experiences. Over the years, he married 4 times and became the father of 8 children. Each relationship brought its own set of stories, some joyful and others heartbreaking. His first marriage began in 1952 when he married Martha Matthews. Together, they had 3 children. The marriage lasted 10 years, but it was deeply troubled. Martha often became violent, but despite the problems, they stayed together for a decade before finally divorcing in 1962. Willie married again in 1963, this time to Shirley Colley, a fellow musician. Their relationship ended in 1971, when Shirley found out about Willie's affair with Connie Kupke. She discovered a hospital bill for the birth of a child born to Connie. That discovery ended the marriage quickly. Interestingly, Willie wasted no time moving forward. In 1971, the same year he divorced Shirley, he married Connie. They had another daughter together, Amy, 2 years later. That marriage eventually ended as well in 1988. Willie found stability again in 1991 when he married Annie D'Angelo. They had 2 sons, Lucas and Micah. Willie stayed with Annie and raised their sons while continuing his long music career. Then in 2012, a surprise came into Willie's life. He learned he had another daughter, Renee Butts, born in 1953. Her mother, Mary Haney, had been an old friend he had lost touch with for many years. Renee, who lived near Houston with her husband Joel, worked as a graphic designer. She had a daughter named Noelle, who also had a daughter, making Willie a great-grandfather. Renee seemed to enjoy a good relationship with Willie after they reconnected, even sharing a photo with him on social media in 2016. Sadly, Renee passed away from cancer in August 2017. Her demise was confirmed by friends and family, although Willie never spoke about it publicly. Willie's oldest child from his first marriage, Lana, was born in November 1953. She has stayed close to her father and even worked on his film Red-Headed Stranger as a costume designer. She became the mother of 2 children, Rachel and Brian. Lana rarely seeks attention, but once shared how much her father inspired her and shaped her life. Willie and Martha's second daughter, Susie, was born in 1956. She earned her high school diploma later at age 27 and continued traveling to indigenous reservations, sharing music and stories. Their son, Billy, was born in 1958. His life was difficult, especially after losing his mother and separating from his wife, who took custody of their daughter. In 1990, Billy received treatment for alcohol problems. He and Willie began working on a gospel album together, but tragedy struck in 1991 when Billy took his own life on Christmas Day. Willie later finished the album and released it in 1994, including a duet they had recorded before Billy's demise. Willie and Connie's first daughter, Paula, was born in 1969. Her birth caused problems in Willie's marriage to Shirley, who discovered the affair through the hospital bill. After the divorce, Willie married Connie. Paula later moved to Texas with her mother. Her teen years were troubled, and by her final year in high school, she struggled with addiction. She eventually entered rehab in San Diego and became the first in the Nelson family to graduate from high school. Amy, born in 1973, also shared her father's love for music and creativity. She worked on documentaries and performed with her musical partner Kathy Guthrie in the duo Folk Uke. Amy also helped run Willie's nonprofit group that rescues horses. Her deep respect for animals came from lessons her father taught her from a young age. Willie and Annie's first son, Lucas, was born on Christmas Day in 1988. He spent time in both Texas and Hawaii, growing up surrounded by music. He followed in his father's footsteps and gained success as a musician. In 2020, he won a Grammy for his work on the movie A Star is Born, where he worked closely with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. That same night, Willie won his own Grammy, making it a special moment for the family.
Grammy goes to My Way, Willie Nelson. Woo!
Their younger son, Micah, came along in 1990. Like the rest of the family, he turned to music. In 2012, he started releasing songs under the name Particle Kid. The name came from a funny moment with his dad, who was trying to call him his prodigal son, but ended up saying something different. The nickname stayed with him and became his artistic name. Micah embraced it with pride and carved his own path in the music world. However, through all the twists, Willie has admitted that he missed many moments while his children were growing up because he spent so much time touring. He hoped that as they got older and started their own families, they would understand his life better. Despite the struggles, Willie's bond with his children remained strong, shaped by love, loss, and the lessons that came with time. His story as a father shows not just the highs of fame, but the deep and lasting ties of family. Though family bond wasn't the only thing fractured. Willie Nelson's most despised artists. Willie Nelson was often seen as a calm and kind figure in the world of music. People imagined him as the peaceful outlaw who got along with everyone, smiled through problems, and never let anger stay in his heart. But that wasn't the full truth. Beneath his relaxed look and soft eyes was a man who held on to memories, especially the bad ones. He recalled every insult, every letdown, and every person who turned their back on him. Time didn't erase those feelings. He didn't speak about them often, but they stayed with him. As he got older and had nothing more to prove, he slowly began to reveal the people he never truly forgave. There were 5 artists who disappointed him deeply, and their actions left marks that couldn't be forgotten. The first on the list was Toby Keith. Toby entered country music with big energy and an even bigger image. He wore the flag, sang loud about America, and made a show out of his beliefs. At first, Willie respected his passion. He even agreed to perform at what he thought was a concert to help veterans. But the event turned into something else. Willie realized it wasn't about helping or healing. It was about pushing a political message. Backstage, Willie spoke clearly and seriously. He believed music should bring people together, not divide them. But Toby didn't seem to care. He brushed it off with a shrug. like Willie's years in the industry meant nothing. That one moment changed everything. From then on, Willie began turning down any event where Toby was going to appear. He thought Toby's music was just a product, something packaged in flags to make money, not to honor pain or real struggle. Willie had seen war, protests, and real hardship. To him, pride in a country came from knowledge, not noise. When Toby later tried to fix things through a mutual friend, Willie stayed silent. His message was clear. He was done. The situation with Toby hurt, but what came next broke something deeper. Merle Haggard wasn't just a fellow artist. He had been a close partner, like a brother. They stood side by side in the outlaw movement, fighting against the rules of polished Nashville music. They toured together, recorded songs, and shared the same vision. It looked like nothing could come between them. But things changed when Merle began making fun of Willie's support for legal weed. At first, it seemed like harmless teasing. Willie even laughed along. But then Merle started slipping mean comments into his shows. He joked about Willie's lifestyle on stage while Willie stood just a few steps away. Then, the laughs stopped feeling friendly. It started to look like Merle was trying to embarrass him in front of their fans. For someone like Willie, who had spent his life preaching peace and understanding, this kind of treatment from someone he loved was painful. The final break came during a radio interview when Merle casually said Willie had become more of a symbol than a real musician. That comment hit hard. Willie didn't reply. He never spoke about it publicly, but those close to him saw what happened next. A planned album was canceled. Merle's name vanished from festival lineups. The bond was broken. For Willie, loyalty was sacred. Once that was gone, there was no way back. Yet another disappointment came from someone far outside his usual circle, Kid Rock. Known for his wild image, Kid Rock met Willie at a charity event. He suggested they make an anthem that mixed rock and country. Willie, always open to trying new things, agreed to a session. But the studio quickly turned into chaos. Kid Rock arrived late, blasted loud music, and acted like the space didn't matter. Willie tried to guide the session, to shape it into something real, but Kid Rock wouldn't listen. He laughed off suggestions and told Willie to just let it stay messy. But to Willie, music deserved care and respect. By the end of that day, he walked out without a word. The song was never finished, never released. Months later, when asked about it, Willie gave a short reply. He had already moved on, leaving the bad memory behind. Meanwhile, the deepest hurt came from someone even closer, Waylon Jennings. Together, they had built the outlaw country movement. They were legends, partners in changing the rules. But with time, their friendship began to crack. The studio became a place of tension. Waylon wanted order, rehearsals, and clean recordings. Willie preferred freedom, messy, soulful, honest performances. During one heated moment, Waylon snapped and told Willie he was too stoned to play straight. Willie brushed it off, but the words cut deep. Their fame brought more distance. Waylon felt like Willie was leaving behind the outlaw roots they once shared. He accused him of taking the spotlight and becoming a symbol rather than a partner. Things reached a breaking point during an interview when Waylon joked that Willie had turned into a hippie who forgot his roots. Willie smiled for the cameras, but his eyes gave away the pain. After that, the two simply drifted apart. No big fight, just silence and distance. A powerful friendship faded into nothing. Then came Shania Twain. She wasn't a friend or a former partner. She was something else, an example of where Willie thought country music had lost its way. Her songs were polished, filled with lights and glitter, designed to be hits on the radio.
Just felt it in, that it was, I hate the word, but it was commercial.
Her performances were more like shows in Las Vegas than the honest, heartfelt country music Willie had grown up with. When she won a major award, Willie clapped politely, but he didn't see it as a win for country music. Later, he told a friend she might be an entertainer, but not a country artist. They met briefly backstage. Shania smiled and reached out her hand. Willie nodded and walked past her. That moment, quick and cold, showed exactly how he felt about the new wave of country music. To him, it had lost its soul. Throughout his life, Willie met many people. Some inspired him, some hurt him deeply, but he never made a show of it. He carried those memories with care, sorting them in silence. In the end, he kept moving forward but never forgot certain betrayals that changed him. Do you think Willie Nelson's opinion about these artists is justified? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.